All right, it says we are live. So it'll take us a couple minutes to get some people in here, but what I'm going to do, so those that are getting ready to join, I am Greg. I am the owner of QC Rock Academy. We're a music school here in Davenport, Iowa. And this is our fourth Facebook live stream. We had a couple technical difficulties getting this thing ready, but we are good to go, I think. So for those of you that have never watched one of these, we are on Facebook Live, so you can chat in your questions right below, and we'll try to get to answer as many as we can. And if you are enjoying this Q&A as we get going here, and you feel like you want to help support the Rock Academy a little bit, we do have a Venmo and a PayPal that'll be scrolling across the bottom throughout the show. But without further ado, I'm super excited to welcome legendary rock bassist Rudy Sarzo. So good to see you, Rudy.
Good to see you too, Greg. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It was a little stressful the last half hour, but we're good.
Yeah, so good. So good.
So yeah, what have you been doing during the whole stay at home?
Well,
keep yourself busy.
When I'm touring, I'm on the road. So when I'm home, I stay home. So it's pretty much the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I usually when I'm home, I go to the gym. Of course, that's not happening. So I just work out at home. I have a treadmill. I got exercise equipment. So yeah, so basically the same thing for me. It's just a little bit more stressful when you have to go out to get needful things such as food and whatever other supplies.
Yeah.
That's where the paranoia sits in.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm good. Just I'm just hoping that everybody does the same thing, stay home as much as possible.
Yeah. So most people probably know by this point you've been playing with the Guess Who for quite a while now. You guys was it Epcot you were at?
Yeah, we were at Epcot. We were supposed to go home on Friday, and then they asked us to stay up until Sunday, which was closing day. So we did. So I came home on Monday instead of Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
And we were the last performance at the Epcot Center.
Yeah.
But even by they asked us to stay until Sunday. By Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was Wednesday, and by then the crowds were dissipating. There was not as many people, so keeping social distance was actually very simple at Epcot Center because there was hardly anybody there.
That'd be a great time to go to Disney World then.
Well,
there's nobody there.
But then you're still, it's hard to social distance in an amusement park. Yeah. So I just stayed in the hotel, and we would access the venue at Epcot Center, through the back entrance, cast members, because when you're a performer at the Epcot or any of the Disney World the amusement parks, you're basically a cast member.
Okay.
So we entered through the employees entrance. So we just kept minimum. We just basically social distance.
Yeah.
So we were, so I felt pretty safe. But the going back home on Monday at the airport, that's where I encountered the most people, and that was like over 2 weeks ago, maybe going on the third week now. Yeah. So I'm good. I'm fine. I'm healthy. And, thank God for that. And I'm staying home. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So for me growing up, I believe I was 7 or 8 when Quiet Riot hit it.
Don't tell me you have grown up.
I have. It's
sorry to hear that.
I'm just a little bit older now, but so I was 7 or 8 years old when Come On Feel the Noise was all over MTV.
Me too.
And me and my brother had, our parents bought us the album. Yeah. So, you pull out the sleeve and there's that, you're reading the liner notes. And there's the 4 pictures of you guys. Yeah. And
I thought that was in the back cover.
The back cover. Yeah. So, I'm listening to the album and I'd study all that stuff. Yeah. So you were the first person I ever put 2 and 2 together was like, okay, Rudy Sarzo, he's the bass player of this band. So I became a fan
Mm-hmm.
since I was 7 or 8 years old.
Oh wow!
So, but you were the first bass player I
Uh,
ever knew what they did.
and
So,
that's why you wound up being a drummer.
exactly. Well, that came a few years down the road. So just loving music.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
Poison. I saw them in concert when I was in 8th grade, and I was like, Ricky Rocket's spinning his
Ricky Rocket,
drumsticks,
yeah.
and all the explosions and fireworks, and there's girls everywhere, and
That's it. Number one,
I
girls
gotta do
everywhere. Yeah,
I gotta do that, man. So, but yeah, I've
well,
always
that's what happened to me. But back in the '60s, like 22 generations before that, it all comes down to the same thing. I mean, music hits us when we're during puberty, basically, because
yeah
it all lines up. Uh, but that type of music, of course, you and I, you're an educator, and whenever I have an opportunity to educate, to share my knowledge of music, it's a whole different purpose than
yeah
the adolescent primal feeling of I want to be in a rock band because of all the reasons you mentioned before.
yeah
And we'll share that. Every generation shares that. Maybe not the grunge because there was no real whole lot of sexuality in the grunge videos.
yeah
As a matter of fact, it was, I was around making videos around that time for MTV, and one of the prerequisites once we entered the '90s was not to have women, female vixens, video vixens in the rock videos,
okay
because this is post AIDS epidemic.
okay
And it was kind of like, okay, if MTV's preaching, just no, not having sex to not so you don't transmit AIDS from how are we gonna do that if we keep having all these hot chicks in the videos? So it was like, okay, from this point on, it's going to be about guys wearing flannel shirts and getting grungy and no video vixens. But there were video vixens in the hip hop videos, gangster rap videos.
Yep.
So that's a lot of the, a lot of the kids started gravitating towards that because, you can't stop puberty.
Exactly.
It's nature.
Yeah.
So kids are going, hey, all the cool chicks are in these hip hop videos.
Yeah, there's nobody crawling on the hoods of cars in the rock videos. Huh?
Actually, it wasn't crawling; it was a gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cartwheels.
So I'm guessing most people that are tuning in kind of know your history. Your first biggest break was with Ozzy.
Yeah, I hope they learn my history from reading Wikipedia because that's kind of like an open forum that people can put misinformation in there. If you really want to know my history, read my book, Off the Rails. I mean, I'm bringing it up because you just brought up history and certain things that are on the internet for everybody and anybody. It's not precise. You might get 80% of the facts, but not 100% if you start reading like Wikipedia and things like that.
Yeah. Mm. So how long were you with Ozzy?
I was, let's say, the first gig I did was the first show from the Blizzard of Oz tour in the United States. And that was sometime in April. I don't have the book in front of me, so I cannot give you a precise date.
Yeah, it's not in my room right now either. So it's
but the last one was, and I've been doing some research on this. It was for the performance of the 2 shows that we did at the Ritz to record "Speak of the Devil," which is the Blizzard, which is the Ozzy's re-recording of iconic Black Sabbath songs. That was 82, September 26, 27.
Okay.
1982. Yeah.
All right. So, and I guess, you were during the Randy years.
Yes.
Of that. So, and then for a short time when Brad Gillis joined, right?
Yeah. Brad let us, him coming in let us finish the tour. with dignity, because he was, he was able to capture the essence of what Randy wrote, composed, and recorded.
Yeah. So, and then of course, once you were done with that, you got back into Quiet Riot.
Yeah, it was the mental health version of the band. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it could have been named anything, but anything else but Quiet Riot. But you know what? Kevin asked Randy and me if for basic, not really permission, but to get our blessings on him renaming what was called Dubrow at the time as Quiet Riot. But it was not officially Quiet Riot until we actually released the album Metal Health. So it was a lot of the songs that you hear in Metal Health were actually came from Kevin's version of Dubrow, which was the band that he put together after Randy left to join Ozzy. And he wanted to have the freedom of having basically an open door policy of different members coming in and out of the group, because at that time, like today, it was very hard to find musicians that would commit to one project or one group.
Okay.
Mostly because the local music industry in Los Angeles was not really interested in rock anymore, and rock, hard rock. Okay. They were focusing on bands that were more punk and new wave. So if you were a rock band, your chances of getting signed to a major record label were almost zero. So a lot of musicians who were not necessarily new wave or punk, we still needed to survive. By that became doing multiple things. Let's be in different bands and not commit to one. But if you're an artist, like let's say Kevin, who is a singer-songwriter, that became his, okay, I am an army of one, and I'm going to need these guys to perform my music or our music if he decides to write with somebody else when, live, and basically buying time and not knowing when the opportunity was going to ever come for the local Los Angeles record industry to be interested in hard rock again. And eventually it did happen, slowly, but once the door opened, and you can ask a lot of the local musicians, because we'll supposed to get the attention of the major labels. Once Metal Health became a big hit, a success, the first debut by a metal band to reach #1 on Billboard, then the record company started looking for other bands from the same space, which was basically the Sunset Strip, to sign, because they say, well, if there's guys like these, we can let's look into into our own backyard, basically. They were all they had to do is just go to the clubs in LA to find that music.
And that the video, you couldn't escape the Come On Feel the Noise video. It was on at least once an hour, it seemed like.
No, every half hour on the hour. Every half hour, right? It'll be at noon and 12:30. And then again, 1 o'clock, 1:30, because there were not enough videos for them to play. That was the problem. That's why we got so much airplay, lack of content.
So I heard the story but you guys didn't want to do that song. So how do you feel about that song looking back on it now? Because it's originally a Slade song.
Yeah, and I have to give you a little backstory too, because when you mentioned you guys, I wasn't officially in the band yet. As a matter of fact, I did not record the original basic track to that song. I was there when it was being recorded. But this is what happened. I was invited by Kevin to play on one track as a tribute to Randy, a song called Thunderbird that I actually got to play with Kevin while I was also playing in Dubrow right before I joined Ozzy. So when I was playing in Dubrow, he had written that song, Thunderbird. And I was the first bass player to actually play, the bass line to it. I wrote that bass line,
Okay.
And so he invites me to come in and record that. And I said, of course. So, since I knew the song, we just went over a couple of times. And then before you know it, we have like 2 or 3 hours left of the session. And so the producer and the guys in the band, meaning Kevin, Frankie, and Carlos, they kept going, hey, do you remember Slick Black Cadillac? And that's a song that's the only song on the Mental Health record that actually was a carryover from the Randy Rhoads era. But Kevin wrote that song by himself. And so they go, do you remember? Then I say, yeah, let me go over a couple of times, to get it back, because it had been, a couple of years since I played that song. And so we cut that. And then we went into Love's a Bitch, that I used to play with Kevin during Dubrow, and a couple of other songs. So by the time I left the session, we already cut 5 songs, basically. And so as I'm leaving, I hear the guys, Kevin, Frankie, and Carlos, in the hallway of this recording studio, talking about sabotaging the recording of Come and Feel the Noise, because they did not want to have that song on the record. And so I'm listening to this, and the strategy was going to be for Frankie to go in and sabotage the track by playing what he referenced as being a bad take. I'm going to play really bad, so the producer will give up on the idea. So Frankie goes in, does one take, and the producer goes, okay, we got it. So, because, Frankie, he can't play bad. You put a gun to his head, it's impossible for him to play bad. So he just played that. That was his version of really bad playing for Frankie Benelli.
Wow.
So later on, when I officially left Ozzy, maybe a couple of weeks later, because right after I did that session with Quiet Riot, I flew out to New York to start the production. We had a week of rehearsals before we did that Speak of the Devil Black Sabbath re-recording. And so as soon as I finished that session at the Ritz, I went home and I decided, you know what, I was able to find joy again in my playing by going in the studio with Frankie, who I had been playing with on and off since 1972. This is 1982. So I had a 10-year history with Frankie.
Oh, wow.
I also had since 1978 history with Kevin from Quiet Riot. So these were my buddies. These were my, guys that, my band brothers from other bands and Circumstances and touring. I did a lot of touring with Frankie in the Midwest, playing bars with him, and in Florida, of course. And Carlos, I knew from playing in the circuit with a band called Snow. So there was a lot of intimacy. We knew each other. We lived together. I was living with Kevin before I left to join Ozzy. I used to live with Frankie, so we were very tight.
Yeah.
And it was finding that joy of family, because right after Randy died, it was never the same again. There was just a lot of pain. Yeah. A lot of pain. I mean, we needed each other really emotionally, but I lost the joy of playing. I really did. It was painful to get up on stage and play those songs, and with the same stage of the castle and the dwarf running around wearing the same stage outfits. The only thing that the thing that was missing was Randy, and so I needed to get away from that environment.
Yeah.
So I joined my buddies, not knowing what the future was going to be. I left one of the biggest bands in the world for the total unknown.
Yeah.
Just because I needed to be happy. And that's one thing that I always tell anybody. You know, if there's no joy in your music, if you're not happy with what you're doing musically for whatever reason, just find somehow to get the joy in your life. Either
Exactly.
fix the situation or find something else.
Yep. That's good advice with everything.
Mm.
Not
Yeah,
not just with music, with everything.
yeah.
So, how is Frankie doing?
We're in contact right now. We're just keeping a text.
Yeah.
Uh, but he's fighting. He's up there. He's fighting every single day.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that with the diagnosis that he had of stage 4 pancreatic cancer,
Yeah.
that he still, almost a year later. It was a
Yeah.
year ago that he told me about it, and so it's really he's a walking miracle. But
That's
Frank is
great.
always he's been my hero since 1972.
I love that.
I mean, Frankie can get things done that nobody else can. You know.
So let's take a couple questions from
Yeah.
that are coming in through the Facebook.
Yeah,
Um,
Facebook.
yeah. So speaking of Randy, one of our students, Tyler, wants to know what's your favorite memory you have about Randy.
It took me 300 pages.
Read the book.
Yeah, it's only the book, and I actually I wrote it mostly for this generation.
Yeah,
Have you had a chance to read the book yet?
I have. Yeah, I own it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but have you read it?
I have. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, the main reason why I wrote it was to dispel any of the rumors and conspiracies surrounding Randy's death.
Yeah.
And believe me, when I did that over a decade ago, I mean, the stuff that I would read in forums, what people thought that happened, it
Yeah.
was mind blowing. So I said, you know what? If I don't write this, all of this misinformation and conspiracy theories, they'll become facts. Because
Exactly.
if you don't tell the truth, lies will become facts, especially in social media.
Yeah.
And so I did. That was the main reason. But also, what I wanted to put across, so as soon as I started writing the book, was like, well, you know what? Even 10 years ago, or more than that, when I started writing the book in 2000, 15 years ago, the industry has shifted so much. I mean, we didn't have Spotify, but we had iTunes and we had Napster.
Yeah.
And the industry was shrinking and disappearing as we knew it. Especially if you reference 1981 as the focus of the book, the world in 1981.
Yeah.
And I wanted to describe everything about it, even the smells of that time.
Yeah.
Because it's we can read about artists, let's say Chopin, Stravinsky, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis. We can read and listen to their music that was recorded almost a century ago, but it's not like being there.
Yeah.
And I was there, and I was writing about a period that I lived, and it's still everything. The music mirrors society and culture and technology or lack thereof. And that's one thing that I really wanted to put across. Music like that does not come out of nowhere. Music is a reaction to the times. It catalogs. It's the soundtrack of our lives at a specific moment in time.
Yeah.
Popular music.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I wanted to really put across in the book. What was it like to be alive, making music, being on the road, and even in the chapters dealing with Quiet Riot trying to get a record deal with Randy Rhoads and the band? I wanted to put that across. What was it like to struggle as a musician?
Yeah.
Because right now you don't have the filter of record companies for you to be heard.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the quality of classic rock is so high is because if you were not at that development stage as a musician, you were not going to get a record deal. Back in the 60s, record companies used to get around that by hiring, they would hire, let's say the Wrecking Crew in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
Studio musicians, Beach Boys. The quality of Beach Boys records, especially with Pet Sounds and onwards, it's so high. It's because it wasn't really the Beach Boys playing.
Exactly.
It was actually the Wrecking Crew playing.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the ideas and the music came from Brian Wilson, he put out sheet music and say, okay, these are the parts, and I want you guys to play this. They were playing at a level that was beyond the musicianship of the Beach Boys themselves, the band. By the 70s, and this is the reason why a lot of this the Wrecking Crew started to disappear from the airwaves, is because musicians had enough time to learn the craft. Basically, by learning how to play, by listening to the Wrecking Crew on records and Motown and all of the studio musicians, in Memphis, Stax Records and all of that. So by the 70s, the level of musicianship was incredible. So the bands got signed based on you being able to play those songs, not because you were bringing in studio musicians to play your parts and then you go out there and tour.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I really wanted to put across. Nowadays, it doesn't matter what level of musicianship you have, or even if you use musicians on the record, you could be everything done on a laptop, using loops and samples and programming, and then you sing on top of it. That was really unheard of, back in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, because the technology was not available yet.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, it's if you have a musical idea, you just go to your computer and you create it, and then you put it up. Spotify, any of the social streaming. We didn't have that. We didn't have that back then. So you really needed to be educated, an educated musician.
Yeah.
You have to have chops, skills in order for your band to get signed.
Very cool. I could listen to you talk all day long. I love this.
Well,
the added little accent just makes it so great.
Oh yeah.
So one of our bass students, Izzy, where did that question go? She asked two questions actually. Mm-hmm. What made you decide on bass, and what brand was your first bass you owned?
Ooh, okay. What made me decide on bass? Actually, I was playing guitar, but I wasn't playing chords. Our resources, personally, let's say, let me give you a little background of my teenage years. I was a Cuban refugee. We came to the country, through the Cuban refugee program. It took us about a year and a half because we had to apply for not only a visa, passport. We had people that sponsor us from the United States, just through the regular immigration process, and then coming to the United States from Cuba, my parents had to basically be relocated to New Jersey because there was not enough jobs in Miami at the time, though not enough industries. Okay. So they relocated us to New Jersey, which is a lot of factories and a lot of urban life. We settled in West New York. Obviously, we didn't have the technology to go online and access how to even tune an instrument.
Yeah.
You just.
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's like, so you learn everything by ear, which actually was good because I was able to develop, to transcribe by listening to the radio, because I couldn't buy all the records that I wanted to learn from. So it's like, leave the radio on all the time. And you just whatever song comes along, try to pick up a melody or a part, learn that, ear training, And So getting back to the original question, I my first affordable instrument was an old Craftsman from Sears catalog guitar that my brother and I shared because he wanted to play too. And if we were, we were poor.
Yeah.
And so my parents say, okay, we're going to buy one. You guys share it. Everything. We shared a bicycle. We shared skates. So it was kind of like, it was me being the older brother. It was kind of like, okay, you go skating. I'll stay in the apartment and do whatever, be home, or you go on the bicycle. So basically my brother kind of like, he had the share of the time with the guitar,
Yeah.
you know, and he's 4 years younger. So, and his attention span was not as focused as mine. So he would like play for a little while and then move on to something else, So then I grabbed the guitar again. But I did not know how to play chords. And my parents could not afford a teacher to teach me how to play chords. Mm-hmm. So what I would listen to is melodies. So I started playing melody lines on the guitar. And so we moved from New Jersey back down to Miami. And as soon as I got settled in, I went to the block. Each block had a band. Each block. So if you live in a certain block, that was your band. And so I went to the band, to the garage, and I go, "Hey guys," introduce myself, and I play guitar. And they look at me and they go, "Look, we got about 5 guitar players here. We need a bass player. So if you want to join the band, you got to play bass." That's how I got to play bass. And they told me, yeah, so listen, playing the bass is just like playing a melody through the whole song. And they were right, because at the time, the style of music on radio was kind of melodic bass. Paul McCartney, James Jamerson, Carol Kay, and everybody else, And so I was like, okay, I get it. So it just basically is like playing a solo through the whole song, which basically that was the 60s and 70s version of playing the bass. Ironically, by the time that I got to record original material with Quiet Riot, that the role of the bass player became more of the 8 notes. Bum, 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 less melodic. There was no melodicism going on at the time. It was that, and it was like, okay, I just finished playing with Ozzy on with Ozzy. Those records were recorded actually at the 80s were not invented yet. So it was pretty much of a 70s attitude towards playing, music, guitars and bass and drums. There was a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. And, the way Bob Daisley approached all those songs and Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman was very melodic. And with Ozzy, I also play a lot of Black Sabbath. And that was very melodic and, with a bit of a jazzy, approach to it from Geezer Butler. So, I go from this all of a sudden going in the studio to record with Quiet Riot. And it was like the buzzword at the time was AC/DC. Which I understood. And I'll tell you why. This is the reason why I did not even fight it. Ozzy had been touring with Def Leppard as the opening band.
Okay.
Right? And Def Leppard, what to me signaled the new generation with that AC/DC approach. They were on their, I believe it was the High and Dry tour, 1981. They haven't come out with Pyromania yet.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, Pyromania and Metal Health came out basically around the same time. So I watched them and I'm going, I see where this is going. As far as like these are young, they were teenagers still at the time.
Yeah.
And going like, I see, and I saw them as a, pretty much what Def Leppard, the essence of Def Leppard, was pretty close to the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot. Very similar. We're all coming from the same place. I mean, as a matter of fact, when they wrote the song Rocket, it's all about their glam rock heroes.
Yep.
from Bowie and T-Rex and you name it, Mott the Hoople, and that was Def Leppard. I mean, that was Quiet Riot in the '70s with Randy. We were all influenced by the same bands, the same music, except that punk and new wave came in and kind of like shut the door for a few years, and then it opened it again. And if you look at Motley Crue, as a matter of fact, I'll even go as far as saying as Motley Crue, pre-Motley, there was a band called London that Nikki Sixx had.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the precursor to what became Motley Crue. The singer that replaced Ian Hunter in Mott the Hoople was the singer in London. So you had so many connections to glam British pop, glam rock coming from England that actually filtered into what became the first era of MTV metal. A lot of that major influence was in that.
Yeah.
So that's how. Okay, so that's how I picked the instrument, bass, or somebody picked it for me.
Yeah.
And my first bass guitar was a Kingston, like a off-brand. Then I got an EB, which I love, a Gibson EBO, with one pickup in the middle because Jack Bruce played one. But at the time, they were being built very headstock heavy. Okay. So I spent most time lifting it, holding it up, then playing, moving around, And then my following bass was the Jazz, 67 Jazz that I bought in 1967. And I played that one all through Quiet Riot. And actually with Ozzy, by the time I was playing with Quiet Riot, I was mostly playing my my Washburn, my first Washburn bass, and then a Roland bass synthesizer. Okay. And I was just use the guitar because I really liked the way it sounded without the synth, Yeah.
But now you have some signature ones out.
I've had. Then after that, I had the my Washburn with the stripes was my first signature model. Then after that, with PV, I had a couple of signature models, and then Spectre, I have one, and we're working on an additional signature model. And then I also have my acoustic bass with Sawtooth, which I just love it. It's just an incredible, and that one was designed from the ground up, from like headstock to the peg, all the way, So it's just it's an original design. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, because one of our guys here, Willie, wanted to know of your signature basses, which one's your favorite?
Oh, my signature! Oh, wow! It's one of those things that every time you start designing a signature bass, let's say with Spectre, it was tough because it's kind of like reinventing the wheel. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to keep it Spectre, but then again, what can you bring to the design that none of the other Spectres have? Mm-hmm. And with that, I brought in a couple of features. One of them is the Sims pickups, the quad pickups from Sims. Okay. And the other was in the design, I wanted to scoop the access deeper so you can actually reach the 24 frets easier. And then they built that, but then the bass became a little bit bigger in the back because they move the sides of the bass. I'm trying to put my hand. Okay. The sides of the bass, they move them down. So the horn is a little bit lower, and so is this. So there's more mass in the bottom, which actually is really good for tone. But as far as moving around, there's a little bit it's a little bit constraining because there's so much more body, And so we're working on fixing that design. So actually, I've been playing a Spectre, which is a prototype. It's a lighter wood, lighter design, so it's really comfortable on stage. but it still sounds like a Spectre. And this one has Fishman pickups, which the Fluence pickups, which are just amazing. It's another really unique design to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That should answer it there, Willie.
I hope so.
All right. So I'll kind of tie these two questions together.
Okay.
My part of the question is, through the 80s, you had all the excess that was going on. How did you keep so grounded? Like with the drugs and the drinking and all the stuff. How did you keep grounded?
It's two reasons. The main reason was that I found a spiritual center before I became successful. Yeah. Without that, I mean, you're surrounded by all of this negative energy,
Yeah.
But in addition to that, if I really wanted to just partake in the excess of rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, we just pick two. Leave one out. So let's say no drugs. Okay. So I was in Miami already. Miami at the time in the 70s. If you really wanted to get into drugs, you stay in Miami.
Yeah.
Everything was coming through there.
Yeah.
The drug culture. As a matter of fact, I found it. That was my biggest challenge. My challenge was not to get into drugs in LA. It was not to get into drugs in Miami in the club scene.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the guys that I would play with, they say, why should I? Because I told them, listen, guys, I'm gonna leave Miami because I want to be a recording musician. This is my goal. And Miami is all disco right now. And I want to wind up the rest of my life playing disco songs. This is not me. I love the music, but I wanted to be an original recording artist in rock and roll. Okay. And the guys would say, oh man, what are you doing? Are you kidding? We're here in Miami. We have the best weather. We got, all these women, tourists, and we have all the drugs that you ever wanted to do. And I says, yeah, but I'm not here to do drugs. I'm here to play music.
Yeah.
I could have done drugs, become a druggie anywhere, especially in Miami. So by the time that I went to LA, I already had that ethic. This is not about me doing drugs. This is not about me becoming a rock star so I can do drugs and get high and stuff like that. For that reason, I would have stayed in Miami.
Yeah.
Why go on the road, sacrifice, struggle, be a struggling musician so I can become a rock star and then do drugs?
Yeah.
No. I could have just stayed home for that. So that kept me, it was easy. It was very easy. And in addition, being in LA, going to the Rainbow and seeing my heroes, who had now left England for tax shelter, moved to LA, trying to start bands, but they were too high. Nothing got done.
Yeah.
So I used to, go to Rainbow and see all of my heroes, and they're like, month after month, they're not getting anything done. But it gets to a point that nobody wants to play with them because there's like, they're basically wasting their lives away. It's kind of like if you set up a rehearsal session with somebody and they don't show up because they have a hangover and they're just like, they're still doing drugs in their apartment.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense. It was like, no. So drugs was never really a motivation, for me to become a musician. No, I wanted to be a musician, not necessarily a rock star, but a musician. The only thing that really appealed to me about being a rock star was the attraction to the females, because females were not really into session guys. It's like,
they want the rock stars.
they want the rock star because nobody sees a session guy. So you could be a session guy and nobody even knows. Nobody even knows how great you play. because you know, there's no that behind the scenes in the studio where people go, oh, wow, look at the chops this guy has.
Yeah, he's
You
playing
don't
the
even know
click
what you
so
look
well.
like. Yeah, you know, amazing musicians, but nobody knows who you are, you know, or what you do. Yeah. Except that nowadays it's different. I'm talking about 70s and 80s references, because today it's a whole different world. Today you could be a kid in your bedroom, and you know, you go on social media and you play the videos of yourself playing, and you go, oh, you know, blowing people away, you know, with your talent, you know. But back then we didn't have that.
Yeah, you had to do it all on your own.
Yeah, you have to go on stage. You have to perform in front of people, night after night.
Yeah. So let's take another question. This is from Steve. It says, being a teacher, I often reflect what I am giving to my students.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? Well, his question is, what do they want to learn from you? Like if somebody's looking up to you, what do you hope you leave as a legacy, and what do they teach you?
Yeah, no,
they
no,
learn
you
from
know,
you?
things like that. You know, I'm still working on it. As a matter of fact, I started teaching before I was a professional musician, somebody who made a living from recording and touring. You know, Randy Rhoads gave me the opportunity to teach at his mom's school, Musonia, in North Hollywood, while we were playing together in Quiet Riot, and I learned a lot from him because he was teaching in the room next door, and I just did not, you know, he had been teaching for a long time, so he knew exactly how to balance from teaching the students what they need to learn and also keeping them interested by teaching them what they want to learn. So I learned that from Randy. One of the things that I really learned was to cater each lesson to the individual. Not everybody wants to learn or needs to learn the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People have different interests. I believe in academia, which is teaching them from the beginning to intermediate to advanced. And there's a pattern, sequence of teaching to that. That's how I learned music in college. And I got to tell you, I also learned that academia back then could be a very slow, tedious process. Because, like I mentioned before, I developed transcribing at a very early age just out of necessity. Mm-hmm. And by the time that I was going to college, I was more advanced in my playing than I was in my learning. A lot of the stuff that they were teaching me, and they were teaching me by the book. There was no rock schools back then.
Yeah.
It was the whole process of music theory, and you were being taught the same thing as if you were going to be a session player, or if you were going to be a classical musician, or if you were into R&B, if you were into jazz, or like myself, I was playing top 40 in clubs already, which meant that I played all of the great bass lines from all the best musicians in the studios. I had to reproduce that live.
Yeah.
You know, and that to me was just as an important part of my education as it was the academic structure of going to college and learning page by page. Well, yeah, today's lesson is intervals. You know, it's like, okay, I'm actually doing all of that every night. 6 sets. 45 on, 15 minutes break. It's like, so that's when I made the shift after my first semester in school was to go to mass communication. I was at Miami-Dade College. And there I learned about radio, television, and motion picture producing and directing. And unbeknownst to me, everything that I learned in college prepared me for the 80s.
Not even knowing what the 80s was going to be.
But I learned about being behind the camera and in front of the camera. Because the students, we shifted. We would be We'll be the directors, producers, cameraman, lighting, actors. How to stand in front of the camera, how to be, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
What does the director is looking from me, and how to give it to them, one or two takes.
Yeah.
Because time is money. When you're shooting a video,
yeah,
and you want to give them the best, because otherwise you're not going to get intercut into the video as much, and you want to give them like iconic moments,
like licking your bass.
There's a story behind that. There's a story, but it has to do a lot with what we're talking about. Iconic moments like punching the bass or the whatever, or doing this, a face, how to look at the camera, the angles that you're going to give them. Because you got to give the editor as much as you can good stuff. And the more good stuff you give them, the more you're going to be in the cut. So all of that I learned in college, not knowing that 10 years later I was actually going to use it. And the radio, television, and motion picture industry in Miami at the time was very, very limited. So I did not get to apply everything that I was learning from mass communications until years later. But thank God I did. Even writing my book, of course, part of the curriculum was creative writing. I had to learn how to write, how to communicate, how to put ideas and thoughts and emotions on the page, and keep the story moving. Arc. Each chapter has an arc to it, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you put all the chapters together, and there's an arc to it. The story from the beginning of the book to the middle of the book to the end of the book. So without that education that I got, I would not be a communicator. That I use music or stories about music to communicate as my message. And my instruments could be either a book, or it could be a video, or it could be the music itself attached to the video, the records, the performances live, all of that, mass communication. Yeah. Now, speaking about the licking the bass on the video. Okay. So, each director has their own philosophy of how to make a video. And I happen to be working with an incredible director, Marty Calder. He did all of the Whitesnake videos. And also, he did the Poison videos.
Okay.
And he did the Aerosmith videos, all of that.
So okay, now that you say that, it kind of makes sense, because a lot of the Poison videos, the Whitesnake, you're like on a stage, but no crowd.
No crowd. Yeah. We did. Yeah, even though Marty's really good, I mean, because he's an incredible director. He does a lot of HBO specials from Madison Square Garden, where there will be a crowd. Let's say Justin Timberlake. Okay. It's a live performance. So it's not because he doesn't know how to shoot with a crowd. No, it's just that was the look at the time.
Yeah.
Presenting the band. See, best way to sell a tour is to make a video of the band performing live. Mm-hmm. There you go. You're selling the song of the record, and you're selling the tour, because you want to see these guys. Look at them. They're so exciting to watch. So that was the philosophy. Okay. So he was really, the way that he shot the videos, it was basically a 24-hour shoot. You would get there in the morning, you got made up, you got your, the clothes, and you had different angles, basically one or two cameras. When we did the Fool for Your Loving video, that was actually shot on film, and he used a specific film, Kodak film, not video technology, but film, which was very different. Look, it was more texture, more grainy, more epic, more filmic. Okay. Because at that time they were thinking about playing videos in theaters before the movie. Again, another way to promote, the product, But anyways, going back to Here I Go Again video. We were scheduled to do a 2 video shoot. Same stage, same production. It would be more cost effective. Plus, we were just getting ready to go on tour, which meant that let's put the next video out and leave the third video, Is This Love, in the can. So later on, when we're still on tour, you release that instead of having to go back to LA, shoot the video, and okay. So here's the strategy. Okay, so we shot Here I Go Again. It took about 24 hours to do, which meant that by the next day, you were going to do the next video. And so all of the main footage, the long shots, the shots of the musicians playing on stage and all that was done at the very beginning. Around midnight is when he starts doing the close-ups. And when it came time to do my close-up, it was about 2:00 in the morning. And I know I gotta be back the next day around 9 or 10 at least to shoot the next video.
Yeah.
And I'm going, man, I'm burned out. I'm really tired. So he goes, okay, let's okay, I gotta, for some reason I'm getting a scan here. Okay, come on, close down. Yes, close program. Okay, here we go.
All right, I'll still see you, so we're good.
So he goes, okay, action. So I'm doing my take of the close-up, and we finish. I was burned out, and he goes, is that all you got? And I knew to say, wow, I'm gonna get screwed if I don't give him some things, iconic moments, I'm going to get cut out of the video. And I've been wasting this whole day here, and it ain't going to happen. So I go, okay, let's, so I say, yeah, I'm ready for the next, the next follow through. So he does it again. And every possible thing that I can do to the bass, I did it on that take. It was because it was not anymore about playing the song. It was about those moments. What am I going to do to the bass? I'm going to put it through my legs. I'm going to put it on my head. I'm going to put it behind my back. One of them was licking it. So he goes, okay, cut. We got it. So I just went home, right? And woke up the next day and did went back to the stage to do the Is This Love video. And I asked the hair and makeup person to color my hair because I didn't want it to look exactly the same as I did in Here I Go. So if you look at that video, they put red mousse color. It was a mousse that had color in it, and they tinted my hair red to make it look like, oh, okay, so this is later on,
Yeah.
So it didn't look like they were shot back to back, one day after the other. So about maybe 2 or 3 weeks later is when I get to see the actual cut of Here I Go Again. So I'm watching it. I'm going, okay, I'm pleased. Okay, they got this moment there. I did this. Okay, they got that. They got this. And then towards the end I lick the bass and I go, wow, okay, that's cool. And I thought, wow, because it could have been worse because I was doing worse things to the bass that actually showed up on the video.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I can live with that. All you want screen time.
Yeah.
There's 5 guys, and those 5 guys, and all of us 5, everybody's doing stuff. You don't want to be like the weak link, the kind of like, okay, he's just standing there looking at his shoes and.
Yeah, he's just the bass player. He's just gonna hang out. Right?
No. You want to be remembered.
So and it works.
And it works. Yes. So that's what happened. And no apologies.
So I hope all of you have seen that video. If you have not, go on YouTube, pull it up today.
Yeah, but then again, I can show you photos of even like what was I looking at? Howling Wolf licking his guitar.
Yeah.
Nobody says, "Oh, Howling Wolf licked his guitar." So did Jimi Hendrix. So does Gene Simmons. So does the guys from Judas Priest. It wasn't like I invented that.
Yeah.
It
was just the time. It was on TV all the time. So
it was out of desperation, basically.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the other projects that you've been part of.
Yeah.
So after White Snake,
Yeah.
you see, I know you got back with Quiet Riot for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were with
Yeah,
Dio.
97 to 2003. The last time I toured with Whitesnake was 1994. By 1997, I was back with Quiet Riot, the original version of the band, Metal Health version.
Mhm.
And then I did that was until 2003. Then I did a 6-week tour with Yngwie Malmsteen in the United States for the Attack record. And then I joined Dio in 2004. Right after I finished playing with Yngwie, I joined Dio.
Yeah.
And then I did the Master of the Moon tour in 2004. That was the last tour in the United States that Dio did. The band Dio, because then Ronnie continued touring in the United States with Heaven and Hell. But as Dio, that was the last tour, 2004. I was asked to join the band during the making of Master of the Moon, but I was in the middle of touring with Yngwie, and I couldn't just leave the tour. Yeah. I've never done anything like that,
Yeah. And then now you've been with the Guess Who for how long now?
Well, actually, in between the Guess Who and Dio, when Ronnie started touring with Heaven and Hell, that gave me a lot of free time because we would just, get together as Dio in the wintertime and do festivals and, in Scandinavia. It opened up like probably about 8 months out of the year. So then I started touring with Blue Oyster Cult. And I did that until like maybe 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
Then I did different things. I was on Jeff Tate's version of Queensryche for a couple of years on that. And I did Animetal USA in Japan. I did something called Gunzo with Tracy Guns.
Yeah.
And then about 4 years ago, I I Guess Who. I actually replaced the original bass player. Yeah, he passed the torch to me on stage.
Wow.
He announced it to the crowd that I was going to be taking. But I know nobody has ever done that for me before. Having an original member say, okay, I'm not going to be going on tour anymore. I'm kind of retiring, and Rudy is going to be taking over. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. So that's when I last saw you. I think it was about 2 years ago. You played here in Davenport.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And
was
even
that
it was at a casino.
At a casino, yeah.
So you got tickets for me and my wife to come see you guys. So
yeah,
that was great.
Yeah.
So actually, somebody else you were kind of started being in the band with, but it never really formulated. A friend of mine, Brandon Gibbs.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that was
the Devil City thing.
Yeah, that was an interesting story because I did a video, but I'm not on the record. Is Eric Brittingham from
Cinderella
on bass on that. And what happened was that at the time I was playing with Tracy Guns in Gunzo, and I knew that at some point he was going to be spending time promoting that record, and it just made sense to me that if Gunzo was going to be on hold, if I would join Tracy, because Eric left the band.
Yeah.
And they asked me, so you want to do it? And I said, wow, this is just, it makes sense, because that way I don't have to scramble to do something else.
Yeah.
I can just go from Gunzo with Tracy to a city
Devil City Angels.
Devil City Angels. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that shows you how much I was in the band. So it came time to release the record, and we had a manager, Larry Mazer, and we made the video, and there was all these plans, and and then it just like fell apart.
Oh, actually, I just looked down at the Facebook feed. Brandon just
Uh-huh.
joined just a
Uh-huh.
second ago. So,
Hey, Brandon.
hey, Brandon, we were just talking about you. So, it was all good things, I swear. But yeah, me and him just messaged earlier, and he wanted me to make sure I said hi to you for him. But now he's in. He's watching himself.
Yeah.
So outside of music,
Outside of music, wow.
I know, you know,
What's there?
I follow you. You know, you're big into like the animal pet adoption and whatnot. How many dogs do you got now?
Oh, we've always had one at a time because Yorkies are very territorial. They want all the attention. You know, it's kind of like they're like the rock stars of the doggy world. You know, Yorkies.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's the dog's name?
Willow.
Willow.
Yeah, we like to add baby Willow because we got her as a puppy, and so it's baby Willow for forever baby. Yeah.
All right. Let's take like one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
This is a question from one of our students again. If you had to give your younger self some advice, what would you give yourself?
Yeah, invest in Amazon or Apple or both. Yeah, that would be it. You know, which right now is a good opportunity to do that. You know, with the market being so low.
Yeah.
But that's another event to talk about. No, I mean I have no regrets. Even things that I spent time in my life almost agonizing with the thought of what if.
Yeah.
You know, once I had the opportunity to go back and actually answer the question, the outcome was the same. You know, and so I have no regrets. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, I tell people, to me, you're the biggest bass player of the 80s. Like you were through the whole MTV era, of course, but then like the three bands you played with during the 80s, during their heights, mostly, it's like you were able to just go from one to the next, and seemed like from the outsider's view.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't like to spend time thinking about the past. But if I was going to think about the past, sometimes I surprise myself. One time somebody brought up the fact that I was the main bass player in 5 consecutive platinum records, multi-platinum records, as a matter of fact, in less than 10 years.
Wow.
I played on that Speak of the Devil.
Yeah.
You know, the Ozzy record, that's multi-platinum. I played on Tribute, which was actually a radio broadcast that got turned into a record, but it's a record. Yeah. And except for the 2 songs that are taken from the Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake time in the band with a Randy played on, live performances. I believe they're 2 songs. I played on the whole record. It was the whole Blizzard of Oz tour. Then Mental Health, and on Mental Health, as credited in the back of the record since the first print of the first album, Chuck Wright, before I joined the band, recorded on the songs "The One I Let You Go" and the song "Mental Health." The rest is me, you know. Condition Critical, and then you have Slip of the Tongue. Those are all multi-platinum records. You know,
that's a good career right there.
You know, yeah, and we go like, wow, that's pretty good. But then again, it's always now, and what you're doing now, and what we're doing now, is the most. That's what I focus on.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we'll take our last question here. What is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you while you were on tour?
Funniest thing. Wow. Funny
things.
Funny things. It's all funny. It's all fun and games. It's all. It really is. I mean, unless you have, a tragic incident like, like I've experienced with the with Randy's crash. It's all fun, especially if you are going to the journey from the very very bottom, starting out. Those were always to me the fun things. Like say with Ozzy,
Yeah.
starting out at the bottom, nobody really knowing about the band, nothing. Every night on stage, you painted the masterpiece. Not me, but the other guys in the band. I was just keeping up with them. Every night was a masterpiece that you took from town to town. It's like if there's a lot of bootleg recordings of that period on YouTube, and if you put them all together, they're very consistent. It's never like a really bad night, like, oh wow, the band was really awful. No, it was like we were pretty on every single night. And so watching that journey, going from like the unknown that nobody knew about the band, so all of a sudden, a few months later, you're on the Diary of a Madman tour, and you have this huge production, with the dwarf running around and a castle, and that was fun. Not really funny, but I would say fun. Mm-hmm. Fun to actually be a part of that, of like, wow, I experienced this, and this is what it looks like, and this is what it smells like. It's just.
How would you describe the smell?
It smelled like 1982. There was actually less. The air was cleaner, less emissions in the air. There was a sense of clarity. Huh. Kind of like almost now, if you go out in the outside your house and there's less cars on the freeway.
Yeah.
And less emission,
Yeah, I bet in your area it makes a big difference right now.
Well, I live on top of a hill, so it's only when I go down below, into the streets, into town, that I see the difference. I live right off the national park, so it's it's not very there's not a lot of traffic going through the streets and stuff. Yeah. And then, with Quiet Riot starting all over again, even at a lower level, because with Ozzy, we were never really officially a touring opening band, except we did a tour in Europe in 1981. That was the beginning of the Diary of a Madman tour, starting in Europe, opening up for Saxon. And that was fun because we just played for 45 minutes, just go there, kill for 45 minutes, get off the stage, get into Tommy Aldridge, he loves to drive, so he would get into a BMW with Randy, Tommy, and me, and drive to the next town on the Autobahn. You can go about 150 miles an hour on that, and so within an hour we were in the next town, and then we go out.
That's great.
We got to some German disco and so that was fun. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of funny stuff in the book.
Yeah.
Until you get to the chapter of Randy's crash. But it's filled with a lot of fun. I think all the funniest stuff I experienced with Ozzy. Ozzy could be one of the funniest guys you ever met, and he's a prankster. So there's a lot. You just expect the unexpected from him.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So everybody, if you haven't read it yet or bought it, preferably go buy it. Off the Rails.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Amazon.com. You can either get the Kindle downloaded version or you get the print version.
When can you make an audio book of this thing? I would love to hear you tell the story. You're just stuck at home right now.
No, but I'm not just sitting around. I'm doing stuff. The voice that dictated the book in my head is so different from my voice that it was somebody else talking to me. Yeah, it was actually Hugh Grant.
Ooh.
Oh, it sounded like him.
See what he's doing. See if we can get him to do an audio book.
So if you read the book and you imagine Hugh Grant reading it to you, that's That's the tone.
That is so good. All right. Well, for everybody, go ahead and follow Rudy on his Instagram and his Twitter. He's very responsive to fans. You're one of the best about that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, because I really appreciate the fans being interactive.
Yeah.
It's just me showing appreciation for them, caring.
That's great. So thanks everybody for listening. We'll let you get back to your day there, Rudy. And
okay,
it was a
Everybody
pleasure.
Stay home and stay safe.
That's right.
Stay home.
Let's get through this so we can all get back to our regular lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, and if down at the bottom, there's the Venmo or PayPal. If you feel like you enjoyed this, you want to send a little bit of cash this way to help support this in the school and our programs, we'd much appreciate it. We'll be sharing this also on our YouTube page. If you missed any of it, you can watch the whole thing. So just about.
Okay.
So I'm going to end the broadcast here. And Rudy, if you could stick for a second, I'm just going to end the broadcast. So,
okay.
All right. See you guys. Thanks a lot.
Guys.